AI is a new thing for simulators too, and surely is a nice way to start using that quick, almost immediate processing power to give you a quick response. If you asked an instructor in a real flight in an aircraft, hey, when should I start my turns or my clearing turns before I go into these maneuvers? And it took 4 seconds to respond. You kind of lose that ability, right? There's no authenticity there. We've gotten to the point where it's almost instantaneous, and it's more like flying with a instructor rather than flying with a computer.
Welcome to the Aviation Business Podcast. My name is Tim. I am the host over here. Excited to have you guys on the show today. If you are listening on Spotify or YouTube or iTunes or you're watching with us live right now, welcome to the show. We are a aviation business company, so we come from Rudder Marketing. We help flight schools across the country grow and scale their businesses with digital marketing. So if you are a flight school and you're looking for marketing services, give us a call, 314-804-1200. If you are in the aviation space, maybe you have an exciting story, or you're a vendor, or you want to get on the podcast for any reason, please give us a call, 804-1200 or info@ruddermarketing.com is also our channel too. So today's guest, we have a very special guest today. We have Chris from Sporty's. So I always like to do this whenever we have guests on our show, is to have them kind of introduce themselves. So welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Tim. I'm glad to be here. My name's Chris McGonegle. I work at Sporty's Pilot Shop. My primary focus is I look at our social marketing. So that covers both pay-per-click and also the SEO aspect of it. I'm also the default flight sim guy here at Sporty's, so I can speak to that a bit, and hopefully maybe today we will. And then lastly, I'm a graduate of our flight school here at Sporty's. So I bring to the table a lot of perspectives on what we do and how we can critique those with the other two things I mentioned. So hopefully those things make me an eligible guest today for you.
I mean, if you're a pilot or if you're in the aviation space, I think you're a welcome guest no matter what. So I guess talk us a little bit about your background. What got you into aviation? How did you get started?
Sure. Oh man. It's a long story, but it kind of starts with I was young
You got an hour, man.
Okay.
We got a lot of time, buddy.
Well, I'm told I'm long-winded, so this will be great. When I was about 7, I had an aunt who got me into the front seat of, I believe it was a 747 at the time. And that is, I think, the point where I kind of had an interest in aviation. I don't know really what it was from that sit down. I still remember it quite clearly, but I think that was the starting point. And then my father was in engineering. He did, what was it called? Thermodynamic stress testing on a lot of jet engines. So that kind of was always in my blood of looking up whenever I heard airplanes above me. And then, as the story goes, I found it at Sporty's through the University of Cincinnati's accredited program, and kind of the rest is history.
So you went to the university program, and then you went to the Sporty's flight school. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I found Sporty's Flight Academy more of as a hobby, frankly. I was studying at the University of Cincinnati, and I knew I needed something in my life other than just study, testing, the roteness of college experience, right? So I looked at it as, maybe learning an instrument, maybe learning how to fly would be something nice as just a time for Chris. And I came to realize that there was the accredited program through UC at Sporty's and started investigating it. And then before I knew it, I was enrolled. And so I went through Sporty's Academy first, got into the training, made a couple inroads into my training. And then that's when I started working at Sporty's, because I looked at it as I'm here at the airport, so often, and I'm spending a lot of money. It'd be nice to make a little bit of money. So that was kind of how the two things worked in tandem.
And then, so you started working at Sporty's, and then what did you do there before you were in your current role?
Sure. So, I came in entry level. I was working just I'd say a few hours a day, a couple days a week. So I was in the warehouse. Something about Sporty's is we're very vertical. We do everything in-house, whether it's paid ads, whether it's our marketing, whether it is order fulfillment, whether it's warehousing, we do it all really in one spot. The flight school, ECA or avionics stuff. There's a lot of areas all in one kind of location. So when I came here, I started at the basics. I was in our warehouse picking and pulling packages for orders. I was pushing a broom around. And that was humbling, I will say, being a student and going through flight training to do those things. But I also think it made me appreciate a lot of what we do here at Sporty's and gave me a good understanding of the way we operate from the ground up. So I started at the entry level and progressed a little bit, worked into a couple different departments. I worked into one of our home brands for a few years. So we don't only sell pilot products here at Sporty's. We also have a couple other brands that focus on aviation gifts, but also home brands. And I was working in the home brands field for a few years before I actually ended up leaving Sporty's for a little bit prior to coming back. But that's kind of my progression up until I left in 2016. And then in 2019, the stars aligned. There was an opening in the aviation focused side of the company to do a lot of what I had been doing. And after a couple dinners and a couple conversations, the opportunity presented itself. And I came back to the Sporty's pilot shop category in about mid 2019. So I've been here ever since then and I've kind of grown into my current role, gosh, in the last 7 years, I guess.
Cool. So I guess two things here. So for some housekeeping stuff, if you are with us live, we had some people on YouTube. There's about 6-10 people live with us right now. There is if you're on YouTube, just put in the comments if you want to ask a question to Chris and Sporty's over here. If you're with us in Riverside, there is a chat on the right side, I think. You can drop your questions there as you go. I have some questions about Sporties in general, because I think if you're in the aviation industry, you've probably heard about Sporties. I like to say that you have a pretty nice reputation, but just for those that don't know, what is Sporties? What do you guys do?
Sure. So Sporty started in 1961. We had it's almost our 65th anniversary. Wow. We started selling radios back in that year. Now, our founder, his name's Hal, he was selling radios out of the trunk of his car. So we always joke that Studebaker was warehouse number one, and it kept progressing. Another thing that Hal was accredited for was he was the inspiration for the weekend instrument rating training. Him and a couple other gentlemen put together a 3-day, just breakneck pace focus on how to earn your instrument rating. And that took off also. So I feel like that's kind of the second layer of his upward progression and what really helped put Sporties on the map. So from the get-go, we've really been into products, but also training. And now I'd say one of our most popular products is our Learn to Fly course. So we offer a digital video heavy course that will focus on all things from aerodynamics to weather theory to regulations. And frankly, that was a really helpful piece for me when I went through my training, to see how something was done and then go and act that in an aircraft with my instructor.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I did my private, I actually used Sporties. So it was a combination of two things. I had Sporties as my ground, and then I actually got the endorsement through Sporties, if I remember this right. But I also did a group ground school. So physically, I would go into a classroom, and there's about 10 of us, and they had an AGI, I think it was, a ground instructor. And he brought the charts out, kind of put everything into picture. So I was watching the videos, and then couple that with the actual physical, classroom setting. Did pretty well in my private, actually. I think I got like a 97 on that test or whatever. Didn't do too hot on instrument. I think I
Yes.
got like around 80 or something. Like that. Oh, dude. Commercial was 90. I got 90 on commercial. So
There you go.
yeah, Sporties is a very good resource. Obviously, there's a lot of other, ground school stuff, but I think Sporties has much more to offer than, just the flight training aspect. You said either the product shop, the training that we talked about, ground school. You also have the flight school itself, and then you also talked a little bit about simulators too. I think is the other thing you mentioned as well. So
Yeah.
there's like
Yeah.
4 different aspects that Sporties kind of covers. It's great. You guys are pretty great. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, the ground school is helpful. one of the things that I really took away from my flight training was being prepared. Okay. So, the big signifier differentiator, I should say, for a lot of students is, do they come in and it's a, what are we doing today? Or do they come in and say, I'm ready to do steep turns and hold myself to that standard? I think those are the two different types of students. And having almost information overload, more info than you need, I think will satisfy any student's, thirst for, I want to make sure I know what's going into this lesson. And that's really what we try and do with our course. So, I am biased. You'll see the name behind me. I like using it quite a bit, but we try and update it every year to make sure it stays up with what students are needing as times change. And we're quite proud of the product it is today.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and I think you guys also do pretty aggressive marketing too. One of the things that we are a marketing agency, so I love talking about marketing, man. But I think I've seen you guys at the trade shows. So we also attend these, Flight School Association trade show. I think we have Aero Summit coming up in May. Are you going to be there in Miami?
I am not sure. I can speak to some of our flight school associates and get you that answer, but I'm not sure myself.
Yeah, so we go to a decent amount of shows, and we always see Sporties out there. So
Yeah,
um, let's talk a little bit more. So your current role, you do a little bit of I guess the jack of all trades, but at least kind of specialize a little bit with the marketing aspect, don't you? Is it kind of what you do?
absolutely. So if I have priorities and someone asks me what's the one thing or most important thing you do at Sporties, it is search marketing. And just because that piece affects all the products we offer here at Sporties. You talked about we have a lot of different areas. From the e-commerce standpoint, we have almost 5,000 products we list under our umbrella of brands. So we want to make sure that we have a great marketing approach because it trickles down to all those products. Like you said, marketing is a lot of things these days. There's the digital aspect of it. There's a trade show aspect. We just came back from Sun and Fun last week, and it's a good show. We see a lot of pilots. It's a tough show, I would say. It's also a great get ready for AirVenture, in a couple months, which I'm really excited to get back to. I'd sit out last year, so can't wait for this year's. Um, but back to that marketing point is putting a flag in the ground and being present and being someone customers can talk to. I think today is getting more and more valuable. And so that's just, the upper funnel version of some of our marketing approaches we do here at Sporties.
Yeah, I love that. You talked about like the kind of people that are looking for products or services. They want to talk to a human, So especially with the AI and stuff like that, it's coming out recently. I mean, AI is great. I love using AI. However, I think sometimes there's an over reliance on it, on automation. And I actually was on Facebook the other day, and one of my high school friends, he put on a rant, put a little post on there. It's like, if I call a company and then it's automated robot or someone from overseas, and I'm instantly hanging up. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, there's a time and place for automation, but I think that the more successful companies, they have some customer service aspect in that in their kind of operations to help close the sale, and I think that's really important. So AI is great, but yeah, I think I recommend for all our schools that work with us too. Yeah, we have automations, we have nurture sequences, we use a CRM. We were able to do a lot of automation. And I've talked about automation too in the past, but nothing really replaces the human aspect of picking up the phone or answering the phone, talking to them, addressing customer needs. But yeah, let's go back to like the marketing aspect of it. What we call them KPIs or key performance indicators. What, I guess, for Sporties, what metrics are you guys looking at to define a successful marketing campaign?
Sure. The easy answer is dollars back from dollars invested, or, as the term goes, ROAS, return on ad spend. That's a quick and easy way to look at how you are capturing customers who are ready to buy. But, as marketers, we can't just focus on that aspect. We need to really look at planting seeds, as I like to call it, the upper funnel, the customers who now know about you, but they're not ready to pull out the credit card. And you really need to have a comprehensive all-in-one approach to how you do that. So we use a lot of Google Ads for different areas of that focus, whether you're in the research, the observation phase, the gathering of information phase, or I just want to get it shipped to my door in 2 days phase. We can, take care of all those. We also have a lot of the social media avenues. So you have Meta, you have Reddit, you have X, you have a lot of these areas. I saw the other day, I believe Meta's advertising revenue will surpass Google Ads revenue either this year or next year. So the fact that they are now, or I'm sorry, it may be advertising spend, but either way, Meta's on the up and up. And it's not just Facebook, it's the Instagram layer that is really
Mhm.
contributing to them becoming a bigger name in the market. So we've been using that quite a bit more. There's also the aspect of how does someone find your advertising? When you look at Google, which is, my bread and butter and also what brought me into this role, someone has to go online and enter a query. They've got to say, what am I looking for? Whether that's text or we're getting to that point audibly. Someone could say, hey, I'm looking for this, and it'll take you there. That's a nice little piece of AI these days. But
Mhm.
with Meta, you're more so of, I've got 15 minutes of dead time. I want to see what's going on socially. There's no
Yeah.
query. It's just looking. And that's where it's a little bit different of how you approach the customers or the audiences you're factored towards. When someone types, where can I buy a Bose A30 headset? That's showing intention that they want to buy. When someone is
Mhm.
scrolling, is that same Bose A30 headset going to work well? I don't know. So it is really a fun thing as marketers. It's very strategic and we got to be tactical. But that's kind of the challenge, right?
Mhm. Yeah, we use multiple platforms. I mean, I think Google is kind of what we recommend our flight schools to start with, just because it's intentional. It's like I like that word you used, intentional. Someone's got to put a query saying, "Hey, pilot training, how to become a pilot? What are the steps to become, airline pilot? Whatever the keyword is that we want to kind of focus on. There is intention behind that compared to, let's say, a Facebook or Instagram. Um, they're looking. They're just we call it doom scrolling,
Yep.
brain
Yep.
rotting. I don't know if you heard of these words.
Oh, yes.
But they're just, they're there just to have fun, look at cat videos, meme videos, whatever. It is what it is. So we do invest in Facebook and Instagram for our ad campaigns, selectively, and I think a lot of it too is like back then you can do a simple graphic, load it up on Facebook, couple cents, and you're good. The attention span has slowly diminished over time, and a simple graphic with some text is not going to cut it anymore. So I think, I mean, maybe if you, I don't know if you'd agree with me or not, but I think a lot of it is really putting on video, and making engaging content. That way,
Hmm.
when you're on this Facebook and Instagram, you stop. We call it stop the scroll. So, like the first, 3-5 seconds of a clip is probably the most important part because that's your hook. So you have to have an interesting hook to like keep them from scrolling up or scrolling down, whatever it is. Um, and then from there you can actually capture the audience. It's a hard challenge we have as a marketers. I think you have to understand what the platforms are and then what the use cases for each. Where do you see the most success as far as sporties go? Do you see it because a lot of it, so for us, it's we're selling a service. So we're selling pilot training, and this is like a $10,000, $20,000 package, or deal, sale. So it's a little more higher, I guess, higher ticket compared to say, an A320 headset. What do you find that the Facebook ads are really good for, I guess, products, then maybe Google ads is better for training and like service stuff? Or what's your kind of take on the differences of platforms?
Sure. I'd say my approach to those two different platforms is where they are on the funnel, actually. I wouldn't say that there's a certain product category that works better on Google versus Meta. I'd say it's more so of on Meta, I'd approach it with here's like you said, with a hook, a video that shows someone flying in an aircraft or a quick introductory to it doesn't take as much to get a pilot's license as you might assume. You're kind of given that little nudge to investigate, right? I think that's the
Mhm.
benefit Meta brings, and then Google is where you can get a little bit more specific in finding out where they are looking and go from there. So from that standpoint, and I've gotten into some nice, I'd say heated discussions with some of my fellow marketers
Yeah.
on the value that Meta brings to the table. Because if you just look at it as what kind of dollars did I get back from dollars invested, you're going to be unhappy, frankly. It's
Mhm.
more so of awareness and getting the name out there in my mind. And then when you want to say, the ROAS levels of return on ad spend, look at it as Google's the one who's going to give you those better performance. And the real challenge when, pitching it to the CMO is this isn't a single person race. This is, a relay. And I'm handing that baton off to the next runner. And that's kind of the way I look at a lot of our marketing initiatives, multiple touch points. You can't look at the idea of someone who's never heard of a product is going to buy from me instantly. Those days are gone with all the competition and how much is out there and how much content is out there. People like to research before making a purchase. I see a lot for headsets. I'm sure you see it for, like you said, $20,000 packages. So the idea that you foster a little bit of interest and then you also have a safety net or that capture of interest, I think that's a healthy way to approach marketing in today's world.
Yeah. I mean, I think I like what you said there. It's like it's meta and all that stuff. It's awareness, brand awareness. So like for us, I think Google is more intentional for the search, and then like hey, you're gonna get better performance because this guy's looking to buy now, compared to like a Facebook or Instagram ad where they're looking at it's just brand awareness. They're doom scrolling. You caught them, maybe you catch them, but now they're aware, and then they're more likely to kind of eventually close and commit, do the final sales process. I like how you
And
say,
if I may throw
sorry.
out one other area, if that's okay,
Yeah, yeah, go
just
for it.
wondering as you were talking. So Reddit, I think, is on the up and up. I think Reddit is a very vibrant community. Say what you will about the people in there. There may be some more bad players than the average, area. But the reason I bring it up is because a lot of the AI queries or AI overviews are using Reddit for their learning. So the
Hmm.
content you post in there is kind of what they're going to read as they populate. So when you have a blog or a post in Reddit that is very, long tail keyword focused, it's very specific. When someone searches that and they're going to get an AI overview, you've kind of moved to the top of the list of how you're going to populate. I know we covered Google and Meta a bit, but I want to make sure I throw out Reddit also for you.
Yeah, Reddit's awesome. One thing I don't like about Reddit is the main channel for Reddit is r/flying or slash r whatever it is. It's the flying channel. One thing I don't like about it is they close a thread after like what 6 months or something like that of inactivity. So
Yeah.
like I find these great threads. I'm like, hey, this person's asking about this say Orlando area flight training. I'm like, oh, I got a school there. Let's try to promote the school. That thread is closed, so it's like oh, I can't comment on it anymore. I gotta start a new one or something.
Yeah.
So it's really you gotta catch it when the iron's hot, otherwise you might miss it. There is advertising on Reddit too, so we've kind of explored a little bit with it. We haven't touched it too much, but we do try to put, at least from the SEO perspective, some content on Reddit as well because I think that's really great. You mentioned part of it as well as like SEO. You mentioned like showing up on AI search, showing up on Google. What are some of the techniques that you guys use at Sporties to like get your brand up there?
Sure. I think blogs are still quite valuable. We write a lot of content from an authoritative standpoint on how this operates. I will say another great content creator in our world is Pilot Institute. They write a lot of great content, they answer a lot of questions, and it's visually appealing. And we like to put out a lot of stuff to where someone may be in a training hole of as they progress and they want to know how to figure that out.
Hmm.
Those are kind of the questions we like to answer more in depth. It's not more so of how do I learn to fly an airplane? Because there's going to be a lot of those. We focus more on what's the difference between part 141 and part 61 training and what's going to benefit me. Those are kind of the questions we like to go to. I look at it as if someone came to our school and asked a question, let's write a blog.
Hmm.
If it's someone who just heard an airplane take off and they're in that phase, there's a lot of competitors out there covering that area. So that's one of the ways I've been looking at SEO. And another way is playing the LLM's game. There's a lot of crawlers out there between Gemini, Anthropic, and Claude, ChatGPT, all that stuff. To make sure your website is well organized so that you're visible for a lot of that, I think is a way you can start showing up. And we're also kind of in the early stages of this. I mean, I think OpenAI has had paid ads for less than 6 months, might even be less than 3 months.
They're running a beta testing thing, I think, if I remember this right. So they have selected markets you can run ads on, and it's not fully available to my knowledge. I mean, that's
That sounds right. And I'm sorry I keep jumping back and forth between ads and SEO, but
No, you're
back,
good. They all kind of agglomerate in the same topic. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to
yeah.
get our tools or we want to get our product shown. What's the technique? And for me, website, SEO, ads.
Hmm.
That's really like the core three. Then on top of that, you have say brand awareness for those like brand authority, so reputation management, which is like reviews. That's like your Reddit posts. You're looking at your social media. And the last part of that is your automation, CRM, sales tactics, things like that too. So if you can get all five components, we call this the flight school marketing system, but it's basically any marketing system. If you can get all five components, website, psychology, the design, make sure it's user friendly. If you can get the SEO, that way you show up on AI search and Google search. You can get the paid ads to show up on Google, Instagram, whatever it is. You get the brand awareness going, and then it's really a formula to really promote the school. So I love how you said that that it's like it's multiple things. We're talking about SEO just now, but then now we're talking about paid ads. It always comes back and forth of what's important. Some flight school owners, they kind of say, oh, I want to I want to show my school, and they focus so much on like the medium, right? They're focusing on like, okay, I want to run an ad for this, I'm going to run for that. But it's really I'm going to bring it back to another level. It's like, let's take a pause here. Obviously these are the five strategies that you want to work with, but on top of that, it's also about your messaging. It's like, who's your target market? Who's your audience that you're trying to tailor your message to? That way, when you choose the right, platform to advertise on, the message is consistent. We call that. I mean, I've done a talk on this, I think, at Fasana maybe a few years back. It was the three M's of marketing. So you have your market, that's kind of your target avatar. You have your message, which is like how you phrase or copy and things like that. Then you have your medium, which I think where a lot of people focus on is the medium. Okay, I got how much did I spend on Google? How much did I spend on this? Like, I don't know. It's kind of irrelevant if you haven't gotten the basics covered, right?
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said. It's very different. The two things or two stories I'll say real quick on these topics are, you know, w- when we started in 1961, I think it was the next year or the year after that, we started mailing catalogs. So we were one
Mhm.
of those that, and we still have
Oh, mail
catalogs.
orders. Yeah, there you
We
go.
do mail orders. And right around, Y2K, when people started getting comfortable ordering online, we had to shift. And you would not believe the amount of catalogs we mailed in the 80s. It was unreal. It was just get them out there and watch the orders come in. And that's changed. And it's only been 25 years, right? And so you really do have to curtail the market and what's popular and go about that route. Something you said earlier is you have about 6 seconds to hook someone, right? I think that's
Yeah.
a side effect of TikTok. And that has only been around for, I feel like, since COVID. So we're looking at 6 or 7 year tech that has shifted the mindset of our medium, like you said. So there's really a lot of need to stay up to date with how things are progressing. And I agree with what you say of you need to know what your message is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have a comment actually. So we have someone from YouTube over there, Mr. Ryan B. Man. So he said that using a clean sitemap, he used Claude, but yeah, having a correct sitemap on your website is helping a lot with SEO on top of blogs and all that stuff. So yeah, there's a few tactics. We outlined this actually in our book, by the way. So Flight School Marketing of Flight School Handbook of Marketing Knowledge is the book, and we talk about all the technical stuff, making sure you have a sitemap, making sure you have, robots.txt, all that type of stuff. I'm assuming you guys do that at Sporties, right? You guys have
Yeah,
sitemap and all these kind of
absolutely.
basic SEO stuff, but a lot of flight school owners don't know it. But I mean, yeah, get your
Yeah.
keywords in, get your H1 tags correct, your title tags correct,
Mhm.
schema, all the type of stuff. Get it going. So,
I agree,
um,
and I think it's you kinda it's table stakes at this point, because if you don't, it's your sale to lose, because as more and more things get added, you need to keep up with it, and if you don't, you're starting the race behind. So, I agree with you completely. It's very technical, it's very monotonous, but it's kinda needed to really show up in today's world.
Yeah, I have my team actually. They submit manually to. So we used to be able to ping Google with a cron job script and just say, "Hey, here's a site map. Take it, take it, take it, take it." They shut that down, I think, like a year ago, 2 years ago. So now you got to manually go into Google Search Console and submit the sitemap manually. The way Google says, "Oh, you have 10 new pages. Okay, we're going to try to index them." And then I was talking to my team, and they're a lot of them are devs. And we submitted the sitemap, maybe 6 months ago or something like that, or 5 months ago, and it still says has not indexed, it's in progress. And they were saying, oh, because Google is probably using all that RAM for AI now. So, I don't know, for Gemini. So they're backlogging all the lists, all the indexing for new pages. I'm like, I don't know if that's true or not, but
Oh
um,
my.
it's a good hypothesis maybe. I want to kind of go back to like the blog stuff. So you guys said, you were talking about the content, 141 for 61 rather than like how to fly. We kind of define that. I kind of define that as like a, short term or short tail, medium tail, long tail keywords. So yeah, the more, I guess, specific and like more, how do you explain? The more specific and detailed that query or that keyword or that content theme that you're talking about is, the more likelihood that you're going to be shown on Google and AI search, compared to a more wider spread general type keyword, let's say like how to fly a plane. There's tons of people already writing on that stuff, right? There's also another one I want to bring up, which is like, have you heard of Marcus Sheridan? He made this book called, I think, They Ask You, Do You Answer? I think that's what it is. And basically the whole theme of the book is like, okay, well, think about your ideal customer. So if my ideal customer is a prospective student pilot, what questions do they have regarding, flight training? And then in that case, okay, what's 141 for 61? What are the requirements to be a private pilot? Is the 40-hour minimum, the 40-hour average, is that really what the minimums are? Can I get my pod certificate in 40 hours, or is it more 60, 80 hours like everyone else is saying? Whatever people might be thinking of, I'm just spitballing here, but you want to make content more for that, specific theme, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. And, to that point, something I would implore flight schools to do is, as goofy as it sounds, is a questionnaire for flight students, every 10 hours, asking them, what would you like to ask, and not have your instructor know you're asking, right? Think of it as kind of an anonymous, comment box.
Hmm.
And I think getting a sense of where are they struggling? What are the things they want to learn, but they haven't been able to learn? I think that, to your point, is just golden content for blogs, how to
Hmm.
do that. I also look at it as with blogs, I like to call them Easter egg keywords. All right. So they're terms that only aviation specific readers would like, I'm not going to give a lot of them, but think of grab card. If
Yeah.
someone types that into Google, that's not someone who doesn't know an airplane. They have a very specific reason to research that. And ding, 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 that is an aviation person. And so now we're going to be intentful the way we segment them and the way we market them.
There, there's like a post. You mentioned grab card. There's a post I saw on Facebook. It was like an AI generated image, and it was like a barbecue and had like a tomato on top of it, and it was on fire. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, only the pilots will get this.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Yeah.
here it is.
I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah,
And you can have fun with, stuff those days. Like you said, some of the image generation does really open the door to have some fun like that. And that's a nice side effect of AI and what it's bringing to the table, other than making us have to adapt a lot as digital marketers.
definitely, definitely, definitely. Um, I want to kind of, we talked about marketing for a bit. I kind of want to bring up another topic. So, in the introduction of this show, you were mentioning a little bit about simulator stuff. So, what type of stuff do you do with simulators at Sporties? Is it more for training? Is it entertainment, or what's the kind of overall thing with simulators for Sporties?
Sure. So I think the way I approach using a flight simulator is to make sure that you're using it as a tool rather than a toy. A decade ago, flight simulators offered nowhere near as much as they can today. And when you talk to any instructor with gray hair, they're going to say simulators are a waste of time, frankly. And I understand that. It's because all they've dealt with is stuff from the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. They haven't seen what is offered in today's programs. And so, with the prominence of Microsoft Flight Simulator, which came out in 2020, and then the second version in 2024, we now have, I say, a very adept primary trainer. Because when you're going through primary training, a lot of what you're looking at is outside the airplane. Microsoft Flight Simulator uses Bing Maps to import accurate data onto what you're seeing. They have said every tree, every lake, every road is accurate to real world. So A quick joke we make in the office is, remember when there was supposed to be a metaverse? Everyone was just going to live digitally. That's kind of what Microsoft Flight Simulator is. They've created an accurate rendition of the world, and you get to fly around it. So when you're doing dead reckoning, or you're doing navigating with VORs or things of that sort, where you're looking outside the aircraft, excuse me, a lot more than inside, it's a great option. And that's just a software standpoint. From a computer standpoint, we've all seen how processors and graphics cards have just gone parabolic. We now have a lot more compute power at a fixed price than where we were 10 years ago. And so
Mhm.
that has opened the burden to having, almost a quantum computer at your home, and it can handle a lot of what's required of simulators. So not only have software programs gotten better, buying a computer from Best Buy or the big box stores, it's a lot more financially feasible. And then lastly, the hardware, which is the third leg of the stool, has just grown a lot in the last 6 or 7 years. There's been a new entrant in called Honeycomb. They're quite a popular brand. They offer really great peripherals. There's the more seasoned brand, which is Thrustmaster, which does a lot of flight sticks and pedals. They're also one that we cover. And then you have a lot of just side options. For instance, you can buy headsets that will plug into your simulator and you can practice communications. That was a big hurdle for me in my training. I always looked at talking ATC as, if I mess up a single word, I'm in trouble, right? And the way I got better at that was practicing with a simulator, because you can talk to real life humans. So those are the things that a simulator brings to the table. From a high perspective standpoint, I think if a student comes in understanding, I'm not just going to turn it on, go buzz the tower like Maverick. I'm going to actually go into it with a plan of, today I'm going to take off. I'm going to climb out at VY. I'm going to fly to this area. I'm going to practice steep turns. I'm going to practice S turns. And then I'm going to do 2 power off stalls. And then I'm going to fly back to the airport. That's where you really do start to see a lot of the benefits. Now, using a simulator is a slippery slope. It's very easy to pick up bad habits. So my recommendation is, when a student or an aviation-focused user is flying the simulator, make sure you've only done things that you've done already with an instructor, so you know the right way to do them the first time. But once that's done, there is nothing saying, if my next lesson, I need to make sure I'm better at steep turns, I know how to do them because I've flown them 2 or 3 lessons with my instructor. You can go practice that, till the sun goes down at home, and be better prepared for your next lesson and save time, which equates to dollars.
So I guess your guys' take on the simulator stuff is for student pilots to buy it and then use it as a supplement to their training. Is that kind of correct?
I think that's a perfect scenario. Yes. Just as you use an E6B to calculate a lot of numbers that maybe is helpful to have in your flight bag, I look at it as, this is another nice thing to have at home, to where, and I've written on this, but I kind of look at it as chair flying 2.0. I was one of those students that had the poster on the back of my door, and I'd run through my emergencies. Let's say there's an engine fire. What are the quick things I do without thinking? Get the hands and the rote memory going. With a simulator, you can now get that feedback. I'm no longer just looking at a static printout and assuming what would happen when I pull the mixture, or I, turn to both instead of single selector and try and crank over the engine. I'm not thinking what should happen. I can actually see what would happen in a simulator. So that's another door that's been opened with the realism. And again, a decade ago, I don't think that was there, but with the amount of focus and research and granularity that goes in today's programs, it allows you to do that. It allows you to simulate emergencies or fly approaches, or really take in the right way to fly an aircraft by the numbers, rather than just having some fun.
Yeah. You mentioned Microsoft Flight Sim. I think when Raul, our producer, he was sharing on the screen there, I think the yoke and all the setup there. There was a thing for, I think it was, you got to pull that back up, Raul.
Take
It
Flight
was
Interactive.
X Plane was one of them, I think, and then my other guy, he's talking about Vat Sim. There's also, I think, Take Flight Interactive was one, and then Pilot Edge. So all you guys primarily sell the hardware, right, for this, or is there what's kind of the take here?
We do it all. I should take that back. We don't sell computers. We used to sell computers, but that's a That is a bugaboo, but we sell hardware and we sell software. So we work with Laminar Research, which is the team behind X-Plane. We work with Take Flight Interactive. I know Brandon has done your podcast before. I like
Yes.
Brandon a lot. He's a great guy. And then also Fly Surely. That's a new entrant to where we are designing and building. I don't want to say an AI instructor, but I will say AI in the digital airplane. So it's able to help you with the right way to fly certain maneuvers, but also the right way to come in and land, or really test yourself on how did I fly digitally and what can I take to an instructor. That's another benefit of Surely is think of those nice reports you get on ForeFlight after you finish a flight and it shows you the graph of altitude and heading and vertical speed and all those things. Surely does that from a flight simulator standpoint. So it's a nice way to get actual reporting on how you digitally flew. And then you can take that into an instructor and say, where do you think my pain points are? Well, it seems like your turn rate going base to final is slipping. And so we need to address that because we don't want to have an accelerated stall. Or it looks like when you do S turns, you're not factoring in wind correction because it's not an S. It looks some oblong thing here. So there's a lot of great values there. But back to your point of, the hardware aspect, we also carry those because flying is such a tactile, physical thing, right? I mean, when you're coming into land, you're on short final, you're not looking down at the yoke to see where it is. You are eyeballs on the runway, making sure your airspeed and your peripheral is where you want it, right? So having accurate pieces that feel right or are laid out correctly, the way you would feel them in an aircraft, brings that sense of realism to a simulator. And so we like to carry hardware that benefits that.
Well, you kind of talked a bit about Fly Surely. So I've heard of the other ones, X-Plane, Take Flight. What? So it's an AI. You said this is not an AI CFI, or you said you're not trying to market it that way. What? So, but it does incorporate AI elements to kind of help train, I guess, whoever's using the simulator. Is that right?
Yeah. So the idea is, and I work closely with the founder. His name is Alex. We actually have a call Wednesday tomorrow. So we touch point every once in a while. We've got a couple of things cooking also, but what's public right now is a way to connect to X-Plane to where it is able to review your flights and it's also able to converse with you. So if you have a mic or one on your computer, when you ask a question to Shirley, it's going to respond with, yeah, the actual cruising speed for this type of aircraft at this weight is going to be here. You should lean your mixture. Or you can also say, I'm flying to this airport. What is the frequency? And it'll give you that. So I'm uncomfortable saying it's a digital flight instructor because I'd never say, hey, Shirley, grade me in the moment on a Chandelle. But I would say, what is the crosswind limits for my aircraft? Or what's best rate of climb for my aircraft? Or how far out am I from this airport? That's something a computer can do. It can say, here's a lat long of the airport. Here's your current lat long. You are 13.2 nautical miles. That's something an instructor could never do, but surely does. So there's some ideas on how we can keep improving it or building on it. But kind of back to where we started here is AI is a new thing for marketers. AI is a new thing for simulators too. And surely is a nice way to start using that quick, almost immediate processing power to give you a quick response. If you asked an instructor in a real flight in an aircraft, hey, when should I start my turns or my clearing turns before I go into these maneuvers? And it took 4 seconds to respond. You kind of lose that ability, right? There's no authenticity there. We've gotten to the point where it's almost instantaneous and it's more like flying with a instructor rather than flying with a computer.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm kind of curious to see if right now it's only in the simulator environment, but I'm kind of curious to see in the future if the airlines or just GA as well will be incorporating some of these AI tools, to help pilot load. I mean, obviously, you think you're doing a cross country, like you need to pull up the charts. You need to pull up. Let's say you're doing an approach, and you need to brief the approach. Be able to get the right frequencies in. If there's a way to get like some type of AI bot, whatever, when you're flying, give you the entire brief. You gotta go through your checklist, I don't know. Maybe it might be helpful. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna. I don't have a crystal ball for the future here, but I
I
don't know
think
what's gonna happen.
so. I think it's out there, and the things I like that feed into this, I think, is Garmin Autoland is already out there, and that has saved lives as of today. So, frankly, the ability of an aircraft to land itself, that Rubicon's been crossed. Secondly, I look at it as, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna nerd out for a minute here, so I hope you like
Oh,
movies.
go for it.
The movie Iron Man with Robert
Yeah.
Downey Jr. He's got what's called his Jarvis, right? He just asks it to do something and it does it. And I don't think it's far-fetched to think that eventually the airlines will have that. As a captain is sitting in the left seat and he says, autopilot set frequency to this and give me an abridged or a briefing on the METAR coming into this airport. I think that's in the cards now. Hopefully not my generation, maybe, our kids' generation. But I think it's coming. And it's the same conversation with, children of the magenta, people who just rely on GPS. Those are there, but there's also the applicability and the value in learning how to stick fly and learning how not to be reliant on it. So I think it kind of goes in both. You should never be 100% in one and 100% in the other. You should find kind of a medium that works for you and makes you more efficient.
You kind of brought up a good, nice topic there. So, children of the magenta line.
Yeah.
Um, so, if you don't know what that is, it's basically with all the new automations, GPS, 430s, whatever, G3Xs. They give you a path, right? It's magenta, and basically the pilot, the student pilot, all they gotta do is stay on the magenta line, and then they'll get to their destination. So no pilotage, no dead reckoning, no calculations, just follow the magenta line. What's kind of your take on, especially without AI potentially entering the cockpit in the near future? We have all these tools. We have wonderful GPS systems. We have touch screens even in some airplanes and helicopters. We have now AI for the simulator stuff, and then eventually, you have ForeFlight as well. All these tools have been given to us as pilots to make us more safer and proficient, but there's an argument that says that it's actually degrading our pilot skills. I'm kind of curious, what's your take on that? Do you think it's augmenting and helping pilots with all these additional tools, or do you think it's actually degrading the pilot competency?
I would say from a average standpoint, it may be a couple points towards degrading. There's an over reliance on them. And there's
Mm,
NTSB reports that you can pick up where someone was thrown into a position they didn't expect and didn't know how to react. I always love the fact that Sullenberger, they didn't go by the book. They knew what to do in the moment because they were both very well versed and are, well put together pilots. And I think there is that aspect of a reliance on automation will really put you in a bad spot when that automation goes out the window.
yeah.
And just as there's failures, aviation's all about redundancy. We plan for this failure or that going out. You need to have a plan for what if, I lost this thing I rely on for 90% of my flight. If you keep that in mind, then I think it's nice to have this new tool in your tool belt, whether it's autopilot on Magenta or ForeFlight giving you traffic and, weather for SGA pilots. It's nice to have that, but you should always have reservations and always have backups in case you lose that extremely powerful tool.
Yeah, there was a post, I think, on Facebook. It was like a guy was trying to do an approach, and then his iPad died. So
Oh no.
he's in the soup. He's in the cloud. He couldn't fly it. I don't know. I don't know the end of the story, but it's like, oh, it was just a headline. Basically, a pilot loses control of airplane because his iPad died. I'm like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's, it's nice and it's helpful, but we really should be able to jump in a Piper Cub and go fly landing.
there
And
you
that's
go.
and that's why I really appreciate getting back to the basics. One of my favorite books we offer here at Sporties is Stick and Rudder by Wolfgang Langewisch. It's an oldie, but it still applies today. And having that ability to control an aircraft via your hands and feel and mental acuity beats a computer, I think, in the long run, frankly. So I think they're nice to haves, but I think the chance of all of those things working in tandem and pushing us out of the flight deck, I don't think those days are going to come.
Yeah. I mean, I remember during my instrument check ride too, like I had my ForeFlight open, of course. That's where I get my approach plates. I have a backup, obviously. but the DPE, he's like, all right, we're flying some type of heading, I don't know, and he's like, go to the settings really quick, and then somehow there's a setting where you get I think it's under accessibility or something like that, but it turns off the moving plane on the ForeFlight. So you still get the chart, but you don't have the moving plane or anything like that. And then we had to do a couple of approaches in it. So if you are using those tools, just be prepared, especially on your trek ride, to not use those tools. Be prepared for your DP to disable. I've heard of stories where they'll cover the entire GPS, quadrant and be like, okay, fly the plane, fly this approach.
I had
use your VOR.
One of my night cross countries, my instructor turned the visuals or the lighting on our 430 all the way down and said, what do you do? And so it was one of those of, okay, I'm looking at a lot of yellow lights beneath me. It's very hard to, navigate at nighttime with lost avionics. But it was really getting back to the basics of, okay, I have that VOR tuned. If I fly to that and then I can go off a radio from there, getting back to the home airport, it's going to get me relatively home rather than just being reliant. So back to your point, we've all had those scenarios, or it's good for us to have those scenarios in a controlled environment to test them and be prepared if they ever do, become a real life scenario.
Definitely. So as we wrap up, we're towards the end, last 10 minutes of this call here, or this, I don't say call, last 10 minutes of this podcast episode. And it's pretty good. It's good. Pretty fast. I think we should talk for longer. I gotta get lunch though. It's almost noon. If you are in the audience, we have about 10 people in the audience right now. Drop a comment if you have questions for Sporties. If you have a question, we'll open up the floor for that. I like to also use the last 10 minutes for self-promotion. So for Sporties, we talked about what it is a little bit, but if there's a call to action you might have for our audience or any viewers on Spotify or YouTube or anything like that, feel free to make a call to action here for Sporties.
I appreciate it. And, I think we've talked about a lot of products, a lot of services we offer here at Sporties. If you're ever interested in aviation, learning to fly, multi-engine training, tail wheel, seaplane, all those things, just browse our site. We've tried to make it very easy to navigate and also to answer your questions. So we'd appreciate the view and thanks for, tuning in.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, so if you're on this on YouTube over there or on Riverside, drop a comment if you have a question as we're wrapping up here. We can shoot it to Chris. If you're listening to this is the Aviation Business Podcast. We are so thankful for Chris at Sporty to join us. It's been a great episode. If you're into simulator stuff, they have a lot of good resources on their website for hardware, software, gear. They also have a lot of content as far as pilot training, how to become a pilot. They also have a flight school. They also have a shop. They have everything. So check out Sporties if you're interested. If you are a flight school, I'll do my CTA, I guess. So if you're a flight school and you're looking to grow your school, get more student pilots in your door, expand your fleet, highly recommend checking out Rudder Marketing. We are a marketing agency. We help flight schools all across the country grow and scale their businesses with marketing. We talked about some of those tactics today, your website, SEO, paid ads, having a CRM, reputation management, all the type of stuff. We do detail that in our book here. It's the Flight School Handbook of Marketing Knowledge. If you're not ready to really contract a marketing agency or someone local or someone like us, this book here, the Flight School Handbook of Marketing Knowledge, has everything we do in our company, from paid ads, strategies, keywords, SEO. Highly recommend checking out this book. If you are a flight school owner, we will send you a free copy of this book, by the way, if you fill out a form on our website. So also in addition to this, if you are interested in joining the podcast, whether you have a fun story, maybe you're a speaker, maybe you're in the aviation industry and you're a vendor, or you're a flight school and have a wonderful story to share, highly recommend give us an email, info@ruddermarketing.com. You can also give us a call, 314-804-1200. So with that, we're going to wrap up here. I don't think we have any comments in the chat channel here. Really appreciate everyone that's been on our show. We were going to wrap up here, but thank you, Chris. I really appreciate you having me on our show today.
Thanks, Tim. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Maybe we'll do a round 2.
There we go. Come back for season 3 next year. We'll have you on.
Love to. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.